Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Linn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Good day and welcome to Ethical Perspectives on the News. My name is Leigh Tabak. I will moderate today's discussion. Our topic is making career changes in midlife. To help us explore this issue, we have two guests today. Neys is a career coach. I think that's how she will describe herself in a moment. And Andrea Happel is here in the Cedar Rapids area. Leigh comes from farther afield, as she'll tell you in a moment here. And Andrea is also helping people through changes in their life and is a teacher in the area as well. So I'd like both of you to give a fuller introduction of yourself and your own interest. Tell us about your interest in our subject, and then we'll get into it here. Leigh, do you want to begin?
Sure, thank you. My name is Leigh Neys, and I am a career transition coach. I work with individuals who are looking to transition to new industries, new fields, and just want something better out of lives for themselves and their families. And so my background is predominantly from higher education. I had a 15-year career in higher ed where I worked through the ranks up into a senior leadership position. I have a doctorate from the University of Minnesota in organization leadership. And I myself was faced with my own career transition. Just prior to the pandemic, I made a pretty big transition from education to the corporate world, where I have been working for a large financial company as a learning specialist. My experience prompted me to start working with others to help them facilitate their own career transition. And it's been a very rewarding experience. I see people from all backgrounds, predominantly middle career professionals, and mostly from education fields. And I'm very passionate about helping people find the best fit for their career and their life.
Okay, did you want to tell us where you are? Is that of interest to our audience?
Yes,
I think? Yeah.
sure. Yep, I am in South Dakota, and so I am in the middle of the country, and most of my career has been in the Midwest, and I'm really happy being here. And I serve people from around the country. Originally, I am from Canada, and so I do also have clients that I work with who are in Canada as well, but I've lived about half my life here in the United States.
Well, that's very interesting. Offline, we're going to talk a lot about Canada, Leigh. I have a student from Edmonton in my class right now. So.
Oh, fantastic.
All right, Andrea, tell us about your background, where you're at, and what you're doing for people here in our community.
Thank you, Leon. So I'm Andrea Happel, and I am a coach and a teacher. In the pandemic, while a lot of people were getting away from their jobs, I actually went back to work as a Spanish teacher at Summit Schools, which is a small independent school pretty close to here. And in 2011, before all that happened, I decided to go into coaching. And I found that as I worked with my first clients, that I really enjoyed it. I never expected to be a coach, but as I continued to work in it and practice coaching, I really fell in love with the process. So networking opportunities, live networking opportunities, reduced to about 0 in 2020. And that's when I went back into Spanish teaching. So I'm pretty familiar with career transitions. I think they happen at various points in a person's life. Midlife is just one of many transitions you can have.
Okay. And I'll say just a few words about myself in case my guests want to ask me some questions. I've been a professor at Cornell College for more than 30 years. So I'm worried my provost is going to see I'm talking about midlife career changes and get worried. But no, I'm here to stay. And but this leaves me in a point that, the subject is less familiar to me. I don't have that personal experience. I have worked in our career office at the college, though, so I'm helping students at the other end of the age spectrum launch careers. So I have a little bit of experience there. Okay, maybe we could begin by talking about what might prompt a person to want to make a change, and we could try to define what midlife means as well. Probably my provost isn't worried too much because she looks at me and says, way past midlife. Okay. So, what's midlife, and what might prompt a person to want to change careers at that point?
I think that there's internal factors and external factors in a person's life. So the things on the outside are the things you might not be able to change. Your place of work, derecho, pandemic, whatever it is, are the outside factors. And then there's the inside factors, which are your core values. And
Mhm.
um, as you consider your world and how it's changing, those things will direct you. There's dreams that you might have, there's desires, and those two things working together, the internal factors and the external factors, will kind of guide you toward what you might want to do next.
Mhm.
I see kind of two phenomenons happening with many of the clients that I work with, and these are individuals who have moved through the ranks, and maybe now, they've moved up from entry level into a management position, and they're looking for those more senior roles, and they are sometimes harder to come by. There's a lot of competition because
Right.
there's fewer of them. And so, if you are on a career trajectory and you're having difficulty getting to that next step, a lot of people think about, well, if maybe that's not for me, maybe there's another step. And I also see it to sometimes for the clients that have young families at home, there starts to be a dynamic play out where family takes a little more of a priority in your life, and sometimes that causes some friction with the career track you're on,
Right.
whether it be you're working a lot more hours than you want to, or you're traveling a lot for your job. That sometimes is a great point for introspection. And so, mid-career can be anything for anyone really, but someone who has 15, 20 years into their career is probably at that point for many people. And that's where I see a lot of these clients coming to me to make that transition.
So when I hear the phrase career change, maybe I'm misinterpreting this. I'm thinking maybe a change from one kind of vocation, profession, or industry to another. But it sounds, Lee, like you're also talking about people who may have run into some kind of roadblock in their current organization and want to continue in essentially the same kind of work, but they've been in the same place for 10 or more years and they're not quite sure how to move to a different organization. Is that fair? Is that
Yeah, I think that's a good characterization of the situation. And people have many different options in front of them, or they just not may be aware of what some of those options are and how to make that next step within their career.
now, Andrea, I thought maybe some of the people that you see with whom you work might be making changes because of changes in their family lives. Maybe children grow up, or I mean, in the worst case, a marriage ends, or a spouse dies, or a spouse
Mhm.
loses a job, or the family needs a new income, or something like this. Is this an important part of the picture too? Or maybe
Yes.
not for you. I don't know.
Um, so in my circle of clients, there have been like moms who have raised 5 children and they've been a stay-at-home mom all of their
Right.
lives. And or maybe they had a career before they started raising their children. Um, but they look at their lives now as their last children are growing up and say, well, who am I now? What is my purpose for getting up in the morning today? I've been doing this for the past 20 years, and now what? So those kinds of transitions can happen as well. And in a way, I'm approaching that myself. I have my third son at home, he's a sophomore in high school at this point.
Okay. Now, as I said, I've worked with our career office at the college, and this has prompted me to learn more about how we find work today. And of course, it's changed a lot since when I was a young pup looking for work myself. So you no longer buy the big edition of the Sunday newspaper and comb through the printed want ads. And we're no longer typing our own resume on a typewriter and trying to keep as few mistakes off the page as we can. So the whole system has changed. And I'm supposing that many people who've been working in the same place for 20 years might not recognize how that way of finding opportunities, introducing ourselves to an employer, making a successful application has changed. Can you talk about some of those challenges that a person might face who's been in the same place for 10 or 20 years and now has to look at a changed world?
Definitely. Go ahead, Leigh.
Sure. I think the power of the network has been something that has really changed. I mean, social media now is so prevalent, and there are so many ways now to connect with people. Referrals are a big part of the new hire process now. And so more than ever, it's really important for job seekers to build their network, nurture their network, to put themselves out there, to connect with people. It is so easy to do it now as well. And that is probably one of the biggest changes, especially with someone who's been in a career in one company or one organization for a length of time. They've kind of built their network around themselves in that organization. And I tell people you have to continue to connect, use LinkedIn, use other social media platforms to find out, what opportunities are out there and to connect with people that you might be interested in working with in the future.
Okay, a lot of my students hear the word networking and they panic, yeah, Andrea. And so I met Andrea at a meeting of entrepreneurs, business meeting in Cedar Rapids, and I had 3 students in tow, and I pulled their hands together to introduce Andrea. So it's a hard thing for many people. They hear the word network and they worry, where am I going to get a letter of reference? I can't tell these employers I'm looking for a new job. I don't know anybody else. What do you tell them?
I would say the opportunities are there all around you. And when you start getting ready for a change, that change can happen more quickly now because of all the things that Leigh mentioned. Your networks are the people around you. Sometimes there's questions you've never asked them. There's people that are friends of the people you already know. Get curious and reach deeper into those networks. Start with the people that you know already, and just know that something that's right for you is probably closer than you think. And it takes a little bit of asking questions that maybe you haven't asked yourself before.
I'll just pitch in here. I'm active with an engineering society. I'm missing one of their meetings so that I can be with you today. I've worked with a group of technical writers in the community. There are lots of these professional societies. They all struggle to find members to bring people to their meetings. They're eager to see people, eager to have volunteers. And if you keep your eye open to these meetings in the local media, there are ways to have fun and meet people too there. Yeah.
The connections are out there. It's when you start to open your mind to find them that you start finding them.
Yeah, maybe we can give a pitch to 1 Million Cups there, Andrea. We met at a meeting of that group. That's a group that asks local entrepreneurs to talk about their businesses and get a little feedback from the community. And they're meeting once a week here in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. So it's a friendly group, and it's another suggestion for you.
And that group is also nationwide. So if you're not in Cedar Rapids, you can look for a chapter in your area. Every group is slightly different. I love to go to 1 Million Cups because it helps me keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the community, which businesses are starting, which businesses are growing, and it's a great place to connect.
That's right. Yeah, another idea here is during there's parts of the year when I don't have classroom responsibilities, and I sometimes go to one of the co-working spaces just to get a change of scenery and to rub shoulders with other people who are doing work like mine, to make some connections that way too. So this means you go to an office space, you pay a few dollars to have a seat for the day, and you're working with people who might have shared interests. Okay. All right, so some people might feel that their skills are stale. They might worry about how their experience will apply, how to best present that experience. So let's address that question. The anxiety of your clients over experience that they're not ready to present, or they worry that their skills are out of date, that kind of thing. What are you telling them?
For me and a lot of my clients, it's crafting their story in a way that relates to the opportunity that they're interested in applying for. So, you can easily make many transitions from one industry to another with the skills that you already have. It's telling your story in a way that's going to resonate with the hiring manager or the search committee, to say, this is why I am very well prepared for this opportunity. Of course, there are other ways for you to upskill, things like Coursera, certificate programs, community education programs as well, that you could certainly look into. I think having a good grasp on what it is you want to do, what skills are in demand in that role as well, and then to see how you can translate what you have learned and what you know with that opportunity.
Anything more, Andrea?
I would also get in touch with your core values, which remain pretty much constant throughout your life. However, the way that you express those core values in what you're doing at any given moment may shift and change. I have found for myself that everything I do comes back to being very curious about people in the world around me, storytelling, and personal narratives. So it seems like I'm doing a lot of different things. For myself, I feel like I'm doing the same thing in every area that I'm working. And I would say to somebody who is looking for something new, your core values and your life experience is going to inform your next step. So trust that. Be confident about that.
Right, very good. Okay. I have, in my reading and to prepare for this program, I again came across the idea that sometimes people feel more, our emotional health reaches a low point in this midlife period sometimes. We begin in young adulthood full of energy and optimism. Good news is later on we recover some of that, but sometimes in the middle there's some emotional struggles here as well. Any comments on that? Is that are you helping people not just with skills, but also on maintaining the right attitude, the right level of optimism and self-confidence? Is that part of your work as well?
It definitely is for me. People need to be able to process what they're feeling and thinking at different points in their lives. And my job as a coach is to help them first identify it and get clarity around it. And then sometimes we'll come up against an idea that is holding them back, where that is the point where we reframe, where we start thinking about things in a different way and just getting unstuck. It can be a very subtle, nuanced process. But sometimes you're holding yourself back and you don't even realize it. And sometimes a subtle shift will help you take that next step forward.
Yeah, and I'd like to come back to what Andrea said about values, because I think that's really important. In fact, I think there was a Forbes article that said that a lot of burnout comes from a mismatch of personal and organizational values. And I find that to be very true. There's something within someone's working experience that just isn't aligning. And so I do a lot of uncovering these misalignments with clients and coming up to define what are your non-negotiables? What do you need to be true to yourself when you go into your next opportunity, and to make sure that the values that they have align with whatever organization that they want to work with.
Okay, very good. Let me see what I want to ask next here. Oh, I want to talk about people might also have financial anxieties as they're making a change and they're looking away to build a bridge between the old life and the new life. They're worried about making themselves vulnerable as they make a transition. How can we help alleviate some of those worries? Or how much of those worries do you see in your clients? I've got a good job, it's paying well, I've been here 20 years, but I don't really much like coming to work anymore. And I'm frightened about making this big leap to something new and unfamiliar. That was just
Well, again,
pretend, Provost.
well, again, in my situation, with the non-negotiables, if that is one of your non-negotiable, you have to be true to yourself, and you've
Okay.
got to stick to, this is where I want to be financially, this is where I need to be for my family to be able to be successful and live the way we want to live. And so that just has to be one of those. But if I encourage everyone to financially prepare for something like this, so that maybe they can take the time off that they need to reflect and consider what their next opportunity will be. Or maybe you have the luxury of taking a step back and doing something that's a much better alignment for you, but maybe doesn't pay as much, but you can make it work. I've been in all of those situations actually myself. And for whatever reason, in each particular situation, it made sense for me. And so I think you just have to understand what works for you personally.
Okay.
Definitely the job world of today is not what we started out with 10, 20, 40 years ago. It's a very fast moving, fast paced world, and the things can happen quickly. Things can be built quickly and they can come apart quickly as well. So maintaining a lot of flexibility, keeping your core values close to you is very important. And then being flexible with different opportunities that come up. I also wanted to say something about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
The best advice that I received about starting and building my own business was you need to have your own personal runway. So finding a way, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big leap. It is for some people. A good friend of mine started a cheesecake business right at the pandemic, and she didn't expect it to be her next thing. She just said, I'm going to try this for now. And it turned out to be a big thing for her. So that can happen. It can also happen where you say, okay, I know I need some income to fund the business that I'm working on now, because you can't expect your baby business to pay for itself right away. So finding your own personal runway and acknowledging that, what that looks like for you, is also an important part of creating your new life.
Very good. So Andrea mentioned entrepreneurship as one option, starting our own business. The two of you have done that. And another option might be part-time work as a way of transitioning from one career path to another. Is that a common experience for the two of you? Is that what you've used? No? Sort of? Maybe? Okay. All right.
A little bit
I
of
see
everything.
a lot of people doing that.
Okay. I'm teaching computer science, and so continuing education is a big subject in my classroom. There are lots of opportunities for people to develop computing skills. One of you just mentioned Coursera. This is an online education company with courses that are both free and some that you can pay for. I've worked with Udacity, I've worked with Duolingo, Babbel, all of these online companies. Part of it I do is to learn more about the subject matter. Part is to gain a greater perspective on the industry. And part is to just show people that I'm an energetic, curious person. I'm not sitting still on the couch all summer long. So make some comments there about opportunities to add to our skills, bolster our resume. We only have a minute or two for this part, but anything we want to add to that?
There's some
Adding
great programs
skills,
out there.
continuing education, yeah?
Yeah, there's some great programs. I would recommend the Mom Project if there are any young women or mothers out there looking to get back in the workforce. They have some great opportunities. I
What's it
myself
called?
just
What's it
the
called?
Mom Project,
The Mom
MOM
Project.
Project.
Okay.
Yep, and I just completed a project management certificate through Google on one of their scholarships.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and it certainly helped me in my current work to understand some of that lingo that I might not have been subjected to in the past. And so there's opportunities out there. Just look for them, and that's a great one.
Okay, we're down to our last 2 or 3 minutes. So maybe you have some parting words for our audience, and then we'll wrap up our discussion here. Andrea, you want to say something here at the end?
I just want to encourage anyone who's ready to make a change that the opportunities exist. Things, jobs, and careers that you never learned about in elementary school are out there in today's world, and you can really design your life the way that you want it to be.
Very good. And Leigh, some last words here?
That was fantastic advice. I would just say, take the opportunities that come, and don't be afraid to make a change at any time in your career. You can always go back. You can always do something different. This is the opportunity and the time to do it.
Very good. So we should emphasize here, both of our guests are helping people in our community. Leigh is a few hundred miles away, but working with clients remotely. And Andrea is right here in our community. So I encourage you to reach out to people. There are other resources like this. Many people might be long separated from the schools where they studied, but might find some help in the career office back at the university, even though years have passed since they got the diploma. I know the people here that I work with are eager to help people like that as well. Okay. Anything you want to say about your businesses to our audience before we part? You want to give them any contact information, or just?
You can find me at andreahappel.com. It's just my name.com.
There we go.
Same with me. We keep it easy for you. leighaneyes.com.
Very good. Okay, well, we wish all of you in our audience career success and emotional and physical health during this season. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time on Ethical Perspectives on the News. Thank you, Leigh. It was great to meet you here, if only electronically. And Andrea, nice to see you again. And I hope we run into one another at more of these business meetings here in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Okay, take care all. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.